Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest business chat with me, Glenys Chatterley from EBN, that's Effective Business Network. Jury's still out on whether I keep saying that bit, but I'll decide, but probably not today. Anyway, today I've got a guest with me, which is lovely, because otherwise I always fear I'm talking to myself when I do the ones on my own. So today I've got David Brandajs with me from Hare & Son, as it says on the screen, which is very convenient. And we're just going to chat about, well, all sorts, really. So, David, hello, my lovely.
Hi there.
Tell me a little bit about what you do, and yeah, tell me a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So, as you've just said, I work for Hare & Son, which is a very versatile residential and commercial estate agents. But we also deal with professional services, which is where I get involved, auction and block management. So my particular involvement is primarily property valuation work. So anyone who's looking for residential or commercial valuations, for whether it be probate, for inheritance tax, for court proceedings, that's the sort of matters I get involved in. But on top of that, I also deal in commercial negotiations for lease renewals and rent reviews. And that can be for both managed clients and for those outside of managed clients. And finally, I also deal in lease extensions and freehold interest purchases for residential blocks of flats.
Fantastic. So that sounds very varied. What got you to where you are now career-wise? Where did you start and what was it that got you here?
So the beginning of my career, I was not very sure as to what I wanted to do. So I originally did what was known as the Peter Jones Enterprise Academy course, which was the first real course that opened my eyes to how varied your career could potentially be. And following from that, I decided to go to university. And within that, I did real estate as my degree. So that was looking at property in a very broad sense. And as part of the course, I got to learn a bit more about what it meant to be a chartered surveyor, and specifically within that, property valuation work. So that was from that point on is when I really started to pursue that line of career. So after my university degree, I then went through the graduate schemes. I ended up at Hare & Son, where I am now, and have been for the last 7 years. And I'm now a fully qualified surveyor. Yeah.
Fantastic. So do you have to be a surveyor to be able to do what you do?
It depends. So for professional matters such as property valuation work, yes, you would. If it's what's known as an RICS Red Book valuation, then yes, you do.
What does that mean? What does that mean? What you just said.
No, that's okay. so the RICS stands for the Registered Institute of Chartered Surveyors, which is the organisation which I fall under as a member. Yeah. And the Red Book is effectively the book that governs how surveyors are to approach valuation work. And a lot of property valuation work has to be done in accordance with the Red Book, and only certified surveyors can do that. So some aspects of my job don't require me to be chartered, like doing lease renewals, rent reviews, lease extensions and enfranchisement, and some other types of valuation work which aren't Red Book, I could all do without being certified. So for anyone out there who's interested in the property industry, you don't have to just focus on becoming a chartered surveyor. There are many avenues and aspects of what you can go into in property that don't require any such certification.
Right. Yeah, and it's you have to redo your chartered status every couple of years, 3 years or so, do you?
Yes, that's correct. So we have to constantly renew our memberships every year, but that's normally no more than just simply paying, a one-time payment annually.
Yeah.
But what is important is that for any chartered surveyor or anyone who's training to become a chartered surveyor, is that we have to do what's known as CPD, or continuous personal development. So every year I've got to do a minimum of 20 hours of, studying, whether that be doing personal reading, or whether that be going to actual lectures and events where we listen to professionals in various markets. It's all about just staying on top of what we're supposed to know and do in our trade.
And I suppose the change you would hear. Part of that would be when things change, so that you're
Absolutely.
up to date with what's happening and legislation, etc.
Oh yes, because in the property industry, like many industries, government legislation and even guidance is always evolving. So, you know, we have to stay on top, even if it's just from a valuation point of view, because valuation ultimately is an opinion, but at the same time, there are certain procedures and guidelines that are heavily enforced and advised, which we have to look to ensure we are providing the correct professional service.
And what is it, the things that you do, which is the bit that you really like doing?
I think for me, it's all about the fact that at the end of the day, property is the single most valuable asset that most people will own, regardless of whether that's residential or commercial. So I just think for me in general, I think I also quite like the fact that it's not purely an office job. So yes, I spend plenty of hours in the office writing up my reports, but it's also just going out to the sites, seeing all these different, unique, interesting sort of buildings, understanding the history about how they came to be and what's been done to them, and just looking at them. And it's just knowing that I have the experience and knowledge to look at a property and confidently say what I think it's worth. I've always found that very important.
Yeah. And if somebody were looking for a company like yours, what sort of questions would they be asking? Should they be asking? You know, they go and see you, and obviously you're the best, but they may go and see somebody else. And if they were going somewhere, what sort of questions should they be asking of any company they go to?
Well, I think the first one is that for any client, they're always going to ask us about, you know, what's your history in this industry? And at the end of the day, Hare & Son have been running for 100 years. And within that, they've always provided professional services. So I'd like to say that what makes us stand out is that compared to pretty much any other company in the local or regional area, we have got a very well-established and highly knowledgeable company. So I work alongside fellow colleagues and we always collaborate with one another. So emphasising on the point that we really ensure that we provide the best service possible. So for anyone who wants to approach us for work, we would always make them feel confident knowing that we have been doing this for a long time and we continue to learn only from the best.
So it's looking at, I guess, from that saying, if I was looking for a company who does what you do, I should be sort of looking at what's their experience and professional status, I guess. You know, what's the depth of knowledge that they have about what they do?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are lots of professionals in the industry and every professional has to work to certain standards. I mean, we've got what's known as the global professional and ethical standards. And within that, there are 5 key principles that every surveyor should adhere to, which was absolutely nailed into my brain during my assessment. And I have a nice abbreviation called RISTA to make it easy to remember. And it stands for respect, integrity, service, trust, and responsibility. Now, I'd like to say that all surveyors adhere to that rule, but unfortunately we are only human. But at the same time, as human beings, we can constantly evolve and learn and grow and adapt. And not just in my professional life, but in my personal life, I think it's very important that you adhere to all 5 of those principles, because at the end of the day, it helps you sleep at night, and I think it helps you navigate through life better.
Yeah, I like that. And anybody who listens to any of my stuff knows I like rules. I like my rules because I can break them if I want to.
Exactly.
But it's that. So you're in business. What advice do you wish you'd have had when you started out? What was the thing that, you know, you've taken time to learn and you really could have been told that?
Okay. I think one thing, well, I think university did a fairly good job of it anyway, but I think it's just knowing that the property industry is so vast. I mean, like I said before, my focus is on the valuation aspect and dealing with commercial negotiations, but it's such a broad topic. I mean, whether you're looking at it from a development point of view, construction, valuation, sale and purchase and sale, lettings, planning. It's such a diverse industry. And I think for anyone, or if I had the chance to go back in time, it would be, is this definitely the area that I want to pursue? Or are there other areas that could also be of interest? Or is there any way of meshing more than one aspect together? That's why I'm more recently started this new arbitration course that I've mentioned in the past, where I want to not only be able to deal with commercial negotiations, but now I actually want to be the person that can make the determinations where parties can't come to an agreement. So in summary, I would have liked to have maybe given myself the opportunity to really explore all the avenues of property. But at the end of the day, valuation is what piqued my interest, and that's why I chose to pursue.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's thinking that you don't, just because you're going down that road doesn't mean you have to stay on that road.
No.
You can actually go off and do something, or go off and think, oh no, this isn't for me, and go back to where you were. But I think it's having that, perhaps that openness to opportunities. Certainly in business, I think, you know, I've had situations where I've thought, that sounds interesting, and I've toddled off, and some's been successful and some's not. And I've learned valuable lessons off both of those options. But I think you're right. It's about doing something because you think it's the right thing, but then developing or changing, or just staying doing the same thing. But you're right. It is about knowing that you can change if you want, and you don't have to do that for the rest of your life if it's not exactly what it is you want to do.
No. And at the end of the day, everyone's different. There is no right or wrong way of how you progress through your career. As long as you get the gut feeling that you're going about things the way you want to, then it doesn't matter. And I think the most important thing is you should never compare yourself to others. Just focus on what you want from your life and your career. And we can take inspiration from other people, but I think it's important not to get caught up in the obsession of seeing how amazing other people are, because in the day, we're all human beings. So I'd really hone in on the fact that you just got to do what you think's right for you. And if you think change is necessary, then you look into it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think you're right. It's about looking to other people, taking advice, being inspired, and deciding how that fits with where you want to go, you know. But yeah, absolutely. So you've made reference to family and also outside of work and all of that. So what do you do in your spare time? What's the things that fill your days?
So I like to say I keep myself fairly busy. So, you know, I like, you know, quite a generic thing, but I go to the gym a few days a week, try to stay active, play a bit of seven-a-side football down at the local chase, you know, socializing, seeing family and friends. In the last 6 months, I guess another thing I've been involved in is my volunteer work. So I've been going to a local homeless shelter for the last 6 months, which has been a very interesting experience. It's really opened my eyes to, unfortunately, how people's lives can be very difficult, and how by just showing the simplest signs of compassion, you can make someone's life that much better. But yeah, you know, and that's why I would say I get up to my day to day. But yeah, I'm always looking for new fun things to do. I recently did the Mud Runner event, which was absolutely hilarious. It was exhausting, but it was a great bit of fun. So yeah.
I did that a few years ago, and off camera, we must have a discussion about your word fun. I managed to break a rib, and I had to be taken off. Yeah, I had to be taken off halfway through because I'm so short and I was on my own. I couldn't get out of anything, and I had, you know, strangers hauling me out of holes and dragging me over things. It was, I'll show you the pictures some point. I look like something out of E.T. I've got this blanket around my head.
Bless.
And all you can see is a black face. But I did do the zip wire, which was the one I wanted to do. The zip wire, and is it, I don't know what it's called, the one where you come off the slide.
Yeah, the death slide. The death slide.
The death slide. And, you know, there's a big hint in the name. But I did manage to do both of those, so I was quite happy.
Good.
But yeah,
glad to hear it.
We'll discuss the word fun at some point in the future, but not on this. But so for now, it's been really interesting talking to you. I think it's I'm interested in the charity work you do, and we'll chat about that at some point in the future. But for now, thank you, David, for your time and for spending some time with us. For the rest of you, so the usual, watch this to the end, because otherwise you mess with the algorithms and we don't want to do that. Then if you can like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, and then come back next week, because as I said earlier, it's going to be me, just me. And if you don't turn up, I'm going to be talking to myself. Thank you for your time. Bye.